Hi, my name is Jill. You are here at Road Culture Rules, and today we're going to talk about something that I saw quite a bit about in the RTR is introvert versus extrovert. How does that affect our individual relationships, but also how does that apply at the macro level? And we're talking road, rural, and urban culture. Oftentimes there's a clash. We're going to talk about why. I don't know what to do about it, but we're going to see. So before we do that, we're going to take a deep breath. Inhale, hold for 4, exhale, and we're going to see you on the other side. This is for you. There's nothing about any of this that's easy, right? I was just made really aware of this recently. Two things. One, somebody posted a video and they were talking about how, I didn't watch the whole thing, but how people were looking in the windows. I so found that. Living in a small space, people just want to look in your windows desperately, and how invasive that is. But but I think it has to do, as an introvert, you just would never do that to somebody else. But other people, they have no qualms about looking in your windows. So there was that, and then there's just my personal experience of how that's come up, because it's been so long since I've had anybody to talk to that didn't, make me want to run away. For those of you who don't know anything about introvert and extrovert, there's about 75% of the population is extroverted, 25% introverted. There's overlap, and you can do something called the Myers Briggs test, which you can find links online. It's really long, but there's shorter versions, or just simple intro extrovert testing. But here's the really easy way to tell which one you are. You know if you're an extrovert versus an introvert by if you're with other people. Does it tire you out or does it energize you? And that's probably the biggest breakout. Those of us who are more introverted, I know that comes as a huge shock, right? Like my experience as being around other people is exhausting, which is why I spend so much time alone. I do not get tired from animals. I get really tired from people. Nothing personal, but this is perfect. So extroverts actually thrive on the energy. See, I said that and he already moved away. Extroverts thrive on the energy of others. And what's so interesting, about this whole road culture, people living the nomadic life, is that was really the original terrain, I think, of introverts. Because if you think about all the ways that people who like to wander don't fit into society, one of the big reasons I think we don't fit in is because we need a lot of alone time, and it's exhausting being in the presence of others. Now, we can be adaptable. I had to do that starting with when I worked at Knott's Berry Farm, which is like Disneyland, where it's just constant noise, stimulation, and people, versus when I was in the hospital, constant noise, stimulation, and people. But it exhausted me. So I think that's probably the best way to tell. If you're an extrovert, you really thrive on that energy. You like to socialize, you like to hang out with other people. And I think that's where we're seeing this transformation happen with these van RV gatherings, is we're seeing more extroverted people wanting to connect in this nomadic lifestyle, but not everybody likes that. And so I think it's a new problem and a new phenomenon, but it also got me thinking more about how does that apply to the communities, because that's probably one of the biggest things I've seen in the rural community is sort of an influx of city urban people wanting to live in a small town. And then there's people like me. I bring my introverted quality. So I don't want to get involved in the town. I don't want to change things. I want to just be quiet and away, where more extroverted city urban people want to come in and change everything. And that's a great big source of conflict, especially, for the people who have been here, for generations and generations. And I think that's the same experience for people who have been nomadic for a long time. They're starting to see this radical shift in the community. And so while I don't think there's simple answers to it, when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, there's probably ways that we can kind of break it down. And I think it's really important. I think introvert extroverts can be in relationship. They're in families. They're, married to each other, all kinds of stuff. The battles ensue around that. I don't know, what the statistics are around that. But I think the bigger problem is when you break it out to larger community levels. And one of the ways when I was trying to think about how this would actually, how you could start looking at this, if you start thinking about the 25-75, first there needs to be a reason for it, right? And people who are more introverted tend to think more, and so they're probably more the idea people. But if you were going to build civilization, you can't have everybody just thinking around ideas or checking out. You need a force of people that want to actually participate out in the world. And so I think the challenge for the introvert is to figure out how to participate in the bigger picture, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a community, or whether it's in, an entire culture. How can they participate? And the extrovert, understanding that the introvert maybe isn't going to participate in the way that makes the extrovert comfortable. So it's a way of trying to train ourselves to get more patient with the way other people are. And I see that, like I said, this town is just wild and how different everybody is. But I see that, there's just tremendous impatience with people. I say there's 5 factions in town, but in town there's huge clashes. And it's not just the introvert extrovert. There's all kinds of clashes, which sort of brings me to the next point. And you've heard me talk about, making decisions based on values. And that's really the basis of the book. The survival solution is to figure out what your core values are, your primary values, and how to make decisions around that to kind of simplify life and the decision-making process. And I think what I've noticed now is that the smaller rural communities have a very different value-based system than the larger cities. And I think that's why I resonate with it. And I really resonate with the farmer-rancher community because even though I don't look like them, I don't have their background, I do share their values. Some of them can get there, some of them can't. I'm still that girl from California. The core values that I see, out in these rural communities is they're more survival based, honesty, integrity, responsibility, dependability. So if someone says they're going to do something, they just do it, and that's something that I was grown up with. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. That's just the way it is. And I'm not so good at that, making promises to myself. But if you're, looking at building a community or a survival situation where you want, or a tribe, those are really important things, honesty, things like that, those big core values versus, people who may not value that stuff as much. If you're building out your community, you have to really ask yourself, is that somebody that you want to bring in? And, the other piece of that, and this works, one-on-one, this works big groups. The other piece of that, there's a difference between your core values and what kinds of things or life, civilization, experience you do value. And I think I wanted to break that out because I was thinking about what do introverts like, what do extroverts like. And, I value silence, I value nature, I value being alone, I value, quiet, calm, that kind of thing. Someone who's more extroverted is going to value things like, entertainment, socializing, maybe living in communities that are tighter versus communities that are more spread out, single task versus multitasking with each other. So there's a difference between, what our core values are and then what we value as people. But I just was sort of running it through that filter in terms of my own experience now that I've lived kind of in all three. I've lived in the city area, I've lived in the small town, and I've lived, kind of the road culture. It's just, I thought it was really interesting to think about. And so, because one of the things that came up for me personally is that it's so, like for me, it's so rare to find somebody that doesn't drain my energy and actually has the opposite. It's so rare that I know I kind of get overexcited if I have that experience. And I think it's very different for the other person. And so I think that that's probably, that's the micro version. The macro version is the same thing. You get into a community that actually you resonate with. It's so rare that, you really want to make that community work. Whereas, the extrovert, they're going to probably be happier in a lot more places. So I think as you're, kind of wandering around trying to decide how you want to live, these are really things to think about. So I don't have any brilliant answers about any of that, but I wanted to throw that out there just as a way to start thinking about it, because as much as we all love our nomadic life, whether we do or we don't, but part of this is going to have to shift into establishing communities at some point. As we get older, I think that's the way we're going to be going. So just a way to break it out: introvert, extrovert. What are your core values and what kinds of things do you value? Just another way to sort of think about as you build before or after you leave. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Before we go, we're going to take one more deep breath for the road, as I hope you will rise with the sun in your eyes, love in your heart, feet firmly on the ground, as together we walk on survival road, one step at a time. Live free, die wild, my friend. I will see you next time.